Testing 1, 2, 3.
Doesn't light up. Should it light up? Wouldn't you think it would light up?
Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm going to use my outside voice for a while until we get this working. So we're going to proceed right now with the order of business for the Board of County Commissioners Board meeting of February 27, 2024. This is a joint meeting. We're calling it today, Tuesday at 2 p.m. And I'm calling it to order, and if I could have the clerk do the roll call at this time.
Commissioner Barnett. Here. Commissioner Baxter.
Here.
Commissioner Bernard. Vice Mayor Marino. Here. Mayor Black.
Here.
Commissioner Wise. Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
As the commissioners come forward, I'm sure the clerk will note them for the record. And if we could have a roll call of,
I do.
very good, you go right ahead.
Thank you. Manager Leandre Camel.
Here.
Mayor Steve Wilson.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Molly Young.
Here.
Mayor Chelsea Reed.
Here.
Mayor Michael Brown.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kim Glass Castro.
Here.
Attorney Keith Davis. Executive Director Richard Ratcliffe. And I'm Julie Botel, President of the Geek League.
Very good. If the clerk has noted everybody present, I know there were two commissioners who came in a little late, we could have an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. So, is there someone here who would like to do the invocation?
Mayor Wilson.
You're on, Mr.
do
Mayor. Oh, I know your invocation.
If you guys don't mind, we'll just do a moment of silence, okay? And pay tribute to the highest source. Moment of silence, please, for the invocation. All right, thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
If anybody cannot hear me in the back, just raise your hand. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to hear and to be recognized. I'd like to approve the agenda, the adoption. If I could have that motion at this time?
Motion to
moved.
approve the agenda. Second.
Very good. See that, is there anybody opposed? See for the clerk that it passes unanimously. Moving forward on the agenda, we have the introductions. And why don't we start with my left? Sir, why don't you go ahead and proceed?
It's Leandre Campbell, City Manager, City of South Bay, also Secretary Treasurer for the Palm Beach County League of Cities.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner?
Commissioner Baxter, District 6 for Palm Beach County.
Steve Wilson, the Mayor of the City of Belgrade.
Greg Weiss, County Commissioner, West Palm Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida.
Molly Young, Mayor of the Village of DeQuesta, and so was the first Vice President on the Palm Beach County League of Cities, or second Vice President.
Michael Barnett, Palm Beach County Commissioner, District 3.
Lisa Diablo, Assistant Budget Director of Palm Beach County.
Sherry Brown, Director of OFMB, Palm Beach County.
Todd Von Laren, Assistant County Administrator.
Dave Behar, Assistant County Attorney.
Keith Davis, Davis & Associates, General Counsel for the League of Cities.
Michael Brown, Town of Hypoluxo, Mayor.
Marcy Woodward, Palm Beach County Commission, District 4.
Kim Glass Castro, Vice Mayor, Town of Lake Park.
Mac Bernard, County Commissioner, District 7.
Chelsea Reed, Mayor of the City of Palm Beach Gardens and First Vice President for Palm Beach County League of Cities.
Vice Mayor, Vice Mayor Maria Marino. My district is District 1, Palm Beach County Commission.
Richard Ratcliffe, Executive Director, Palm Beach County League of Cities.
Julie Botel, City of Riviera Beach Councilwoman and President of the Palm Beach County League of Cities.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, for being present, and be ready to discuss what's on the agenda today. I'd like to pass not my microphone certainly, because it's not working, but the gavel to our County Administrator, Virginia Baker, and then we're going to hear from Sherry Brown and Todd Von Laren when it comes to our infrastructure surtax.
Thank you to my board as well as the League of Cities. Thank you for being here today. We did get a request from Richard, which we were trying to set up a prior meeting. That timing did not work out so well. But Richard did submit a request that we meet together. So I went to my board and they did direct me to set up this meeting. So we're here today to primarily discuss the infrastructure sales tax. What we want to do, because a lot of our board, some of our board, I should say, was not around when we did the initial sales tax. And some of you are new members as well. And so we're going to have Sherry and Todd lay out what the state will allow us to do as far as discretionary sales surtax. And then we'll move into the discussion, give it back to you, and then we'll move into the discussion.
We just want to say thank you for having us here today. You know, we have direction from our board to have this conversation with you to pursue the possibility of this infrastructure sales tax. And so we very much appreciate your taking the time to meet with us today.
So this is a very important topic.
And I'm going to move out of the way.
Oh, no, it's great. Okay, all right, very good. Okay.
Oh, okay. I don't have to move. Good.
Okay, yeah, you stay close. We're going to get this thing going here. Okay, yes, it is. Okay, we're going to start with Ms. Brown first, or Mr. Von Laren, whichever you prefer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam President, members of the boards of the League of Cities and County Commission and staff. First, wanted to just share in front of you the packets of information that you have. We put together just a brief executive over of what we plan to do today in our presentations, and this joint meeting is convening of the League of Cities and the Board of County Commissioners to seek direction on the continuation of the countywide local government infrastructure surtax. Included also in this packet, you'll find in there the PowerPoint that we'll be going through briefly. You'll also find a copy of the ordinance back in 2026 when this item was brought before the Board of County Commissioners.
2016.
I'm sorry, 2016. That's the expiration date, supposed to be 2026. We'll get to that in a minute. In 2016, and that is the language that appeared on the ballot in November of 2016. We also thank Richard, who did a nice compilation of the status with most of the cities and where they were in resolutions that they were offering in support or other direction on the continuation of the infrastructure surtax. And then also a number of the cities provided some project lists that they were looking to include in this packet as well. And you'll find those in alphabetical order of those cities that have provided some of those particular projects for their municipalities. So we wanted to just talk about this discretionary sales surtax and give you a little bit of history on it as well. It obviously came before the board back in 2016, and at that time, both the League of Cities, the Board of County Commissioners, as well as the school district had come together to seek a 1% sales surtax, so a 1 cent sales surtax. And if you go to the next slide, the Florida statute gives us some discretion locally on different types of sales surtaxes that are available to us under statute 212. There's 9 different types of surtaxes. We'll go over some of those today. They might lead to additional discussion as well. But particularly in statute, it discusses the rate at which some of these surtaxes can be imposed, whether that's a half cent, a cent, or up to a full cent. It will share with you a little bit about the maximum length, if any, that you can have some of these surtaxes in place. And then it will give you those procedures by which you need to secure voter approval for doing that. And then also it'll get very specific about the nature of the proceeds that you may be able to expend those particular pennies on. Okay.
So the surtax is the same as the state sales tax, the 6% state sales tax, except that the surtax only applies to the first $5,000 of a sales price of a tangible personal property. So when you go out and buy a car, you spend $50,000 on a car, you're going to pay 6% on the full cost of the car, but only 1 cent what we have today for that up to the $5,000. So it's an additional $50 for those purchases above $5,000. Many items are exempt: groceries, baby food, formula, medicines. There's some exemptions now with the commercial real estate property, transient rentals and services. That was kind of new from our 2016 when we were doing this back then. And one of the biggest selling points is that the surtax stays local. It stays within Palm Beach County, so it's collected in Palm Beach County, comes back to Palm Beach County. Just included in here, just as an FYI, the discretionary sales surtax is in all of our counties except for Citrus and Collier. So all of the other counties have some form of our sales tax or surtax. You can see that some counties have 1.5%. We are here in 1%. I always look at like Hillsborough as similar to Palm Beach County at 1.5%. Broward to our south is 1%. Martin County to our north is 0.5%. Orange County's 0.5%. Pinellas and Miami-Dade are in the 1% category. Some of our other that we look at.
So we want to get into a little bit of some of the different infrastructure or different surtaxes that are available discretionary in statute, just so you have an understanding of what they are and what their uses are for. So we'll start off with the local government infrastructure surtax. That is the tax that we came together to discuss today, and this is what is in place in Palm Beach County. You have the option of doing either a 1/2 cent or a full cent of that infrastructure surtax. And much like what we've done here in Palm Beach County, we entered into an agreement with the school district, the League of Cities, and the county on how that distribution would work. You don't necessarily have to have that agreement if it's just the cities and the county. You can refer back to the description model that is put forth in statute about how those allocations would occur between cities and counties. But mostly that is done by municipal population and county population. So that's how we got to the 60-40 split, which is roughly about what that split is today in terms of incorporated versus unincorporated population. A majority of the vote of the electors must vote in order to pass that local government infrastructure surtax. And then specifically when you get into what the uses are for that, two of the main ones are those next bullets. One is to finance, plan, and construct infrastructure. So it really gets in there about the construction, financing, and planning. It doesn't talk about the operational side of that because that is not a use that's allowable under the infrastructure, just mostly on the capital side for financing, planning, and constructing. Likewise, the acquisition of any interest in land for public recreation, conservation, or any type of natural resources is another larger use. And then the next two bullets are ones that are maybe not done as much because one is to provide some loans and grants and rebates for residential and commercial property for energy efficiency improvements, and those are based on improvements per referendum in those local governments as passed by their electorate. And then finally to finance or the closure of county or municipal owned solid waste landfills. So just so you know, on this particular one, there are 27 local governments that are currently levying this particular infrastructure surtax in the state of Florida as of 2023. Statute doesn't specifically prescribe a duration to this, but our attorneys have been in consultation with some of our outside attorneys who have recommended a 15-year period on that. But again, that's one of those things where there is a little bit of gray area in statute about what we might be able to do in terms of duration of that. For purposes of ours, you know that ours was put in place for 10 years, from 2016 to 2026, or until such time as we collected a certain amount of money, and then it would be sunsetted. The next surtax is the school district levy. This is one that may not exceed 0.5%. This again has to go to the voters and put in place by a majority vote of those elected. It is also shared with charter schools, so a portion of the dollars that are collected go to charter schools. It's imposed by the district, and the county's role is somewhat ministerial in terms of getting that on the ballot. The school board has indicated to us, and they have moved forward with a 1/2 cent school district levy that they would like to put on the November ballot this year. They have forwarded their language to the county attorney's office, and we anticipate that going back before the Board of County Commissioners in April of 2024. And that is just specifically for their 1/2 cent surtax. And just to kind of caveat on that, we'll talk about some of the time frames of these in a minute, But by doing that, the school district sort of gets within the time frame that we'll go over of this having to go to APAGA for the performance audit, that they will do an overview of that and then provide them that audit back no later than 60 days prior to the general election. But the school district levy specifically is meant to fund fixed capital expenditures for the construction, for the reconstruction and improvement of school facilities and campuses, and also for the retrofitting and providing of technology implementation. The other tax, and this is one that I think that has been spoken about some with our board, your boards, and the TPA, is that of the transportation system surtax. In the state of Florida right now, there are 3 counties that currently are levying this tax. Miami-Dade County and Duval County and Broward County. Broward has a full cent that they levy for this, and then the other 2 respectively have a half-cent tax for this transportation system surtax. This can be levied for up to 30 years, and then the county can distribute those proceeds from the tax to a municipality, as well as to an expressway or transportation authority if there is one that's created in that area. Again, it has to go to a majority vote of the electors. And then it goes into some detail here about some of the uses for this. So again, you can use this like the infrastructure sale tax for planning, development, and construction of certain infrastructure, but this goes beyond that by allowing for the operation and maintenance as well of that infrastructure. It can fund bridges in the county, can plan for the planning, development, expansion, operation, and maintenance of bus and fixed bus guideway systems, and for the planning, development, construction, expansion, operation, and maintenance of on-demand transportation services, as well as for the payment of principal and interest on bonds issued for the construction of fixed guideway, rapid transit systems, bus systems, roads, or bridges. And so the primary difference between, for example, the infrastructure tax and the transportation surtax is one is primarily capital. The transportation allows for capital as well as operations too.
So the next one we'll just throw out real quickly, high level. There's an indigent care and trauma center surtax which is available to the county. It's really to fund healthcare services, and since we have our own healthcare district in Palm Beach County, it's probably not something we would consider at this point, but it could take a supermajority vote of the BCC or majority vote of the electors. I just threw it out there since it is eligible. There's also a pension liability surtax. It really doesn't, we don't meet the prerequisites, even though if we did, it would be something that we could look at. So I just wanted to throw it out there that that is one of the 9 that's eligible to Palm Beach County. Next is the Emergency Fire Rescue Services and Facility Surtax that is eligible here in Palm Beach County. It could be up to 1%. It would be shared with any municipalities providing emergency fire rescue services. It's approved by a majority of the voters, and it can be used for fire rescue services and facilities, so both operating and capital. I think Liberty County is the only county in the state that has moved forward with this surtax at this time. And then the other 3 that we didn't throw up on the screen are, there's 2 for small counties, and there's 1 for a hospital surtax, which only Miami-Dade is eligible to use those, and since those didn't apply to us, we just left them off of there, but there are the other 3.
So our current infrastructure surtax that's in place in Palm Beach County is a 1-cent sales tax. The prescription that we put on that when it went to the voters was for this to be a no more than 10-year tax that would be imposed on everyone who purchases goods within Palm Beach County, both residents or people that are visiting our county. But the one component of this that we provided in there was when we put forward our plan for that infrastructure surtax, both from the cities, the county, and the school district, that plan was a $2.7 billion plan. And therefore, we told the voters, and we wrote into that ordinance, that when we reach the collection of $2.7 billion, if that was before the December 31st, 2026 sunset of this, that it would expire sooner and sunset sooner than that. So based on some of our current projections that we are seeing, it is expected that our surtax will end a year early, and we believe that we will meet that $2.7 billion threshold by September of next year for that to sunset on December 31st of 2015. Another component that was created as part of this under that ordinance was that each of the separate three bodies were to create a citizen oversight committee to review the spending just for compliance with some of those approved projects. That was a method by which our voters would know that an independent group of citizens would be keeping an eye on that, and that we would continue to spend it on the items that we asked the voters to spend those on, unless that citizen advisory group agreed to do something differently and forward that to the Board of County Commissioners. The distribution, we spoke about that a little bit earlier, but to just go over that, the 1% would be distributed and is distributed as follows. The school board gets half of that, so 50% of that. Palm Beach County gets 30% of that, and then our municipalities get 20% of that. I mentioned that 30-20 split is that 60-40 incorporated versus unincorporated, and that agreement we brought together because there's multiple parties. Again, if it was just the cities and counties, that agreement could defer back to statute in terms of that distribution method and model. The ballot language that we wanted to share with you, this is the language from November of 2016 when we went with the school district and the cities and counties. And just real quickly, we're obviously limited by the number of words that we're able to put on a particular ballot, but the language was to enhance education by improving district-owned school buildings, equipment, technology, and security, purchase school buses, public safety vehicles and equipment, and equip, construct, and repair roads, bridges, signals, streetlights, sidewalks, parks, drainage, shoreline, and wastewater infrastructure, recreational and government facilities. Shall the county levy a 1-cent sales surtax beginning January 1st, 2017, and automatically ending on or before December 31st, 2026, with independent oversight by citizen committees. So obviously trying to get a lot of information about what we're trying to do with this encompassing surtax to the voters so they have as good an idea as possible when they go to the ballot box of what they are voting on.
All right, what I look for is all the numbers. So this is the countywide collections to date. In 2017 this is based on a calendar year. So the 2017 collections really represents 10 months of actual cash collections because the tax started in January. So as we went shopping in January and paid sales tax, those stores sent it in February, and then it came back into the local economy, back to the governments in March. So that's why there's 10 months. So you see a 32% increase in 2018, just numbers to numbers, but that's because it's comparing 10 months to 12 months. In 2019, we did still see an increase above 2018 of 4%. In 2020 with the pandemic, that's where we saw a 5% drop. And then coming out of the pandemic in 2021, we saw a 20% increase. Then we still saw another 19.5% increase in collections in 2022. That's when I decided, after almost 30 years of doing finance and government, that I have no idea how to project revenues anymore with the pandemic. And then in 2023, we saw a 4% increase, which I think is probably a little bit more realistic from year to year. So to date, through the end of 2023, we have collected as a county $2.2 billion. For us to end it 2 years early, we would have to collect another $500 million between January of this year and August. And we would probably have to increase almost 48% higher than the same time period as last year. So I think it's pretty unlikely that we're going to do that. So I would see it ending in 2025.
So the last slide that we have prepared for you is just one related to timeline and then potential next steps. I mean, obviously, we're here today to get some board direction to determine what something might look like if there is a will to move forward. So clearly, we wanted to lay out all of the different opportunities that are, but still specifically focusing on the infrastructure surtax that's in place today. our partners that are here, obviously the school district, and thank you, Richard. I know that this is something that Ms. Baker spoke very early on with Richard about whether there was a want or desire of our municipalities to move forward with that surtax. And Richard has spent some time with all of you in the municipalities. So to date, 27 municipalities have passed resolutions in support of the continuation of the infrastructure sales tax. 6 are pending right now, agenda items. 1, there's no formal support either way. 4, no declared action, and 1 municipality who did not pass that resolution. So getting into the timeline here, because we recently received a letter from the school district indicating that it was in their opinion that they wanted to move forward and felt like timing-wise it was going to be difficult in order to meet, some of the timing to do that. We have a little bit different opinion in terms of the timing in order to do that if we were all to come back together again and do it. Obviously, if we do all come back together as school, city, and county, we don't need to go to OPAGA and have to go through those specific timelines. We can just move forward with the ballot language as it is, going to the supervisor of elections. But in order for us to do something different than what is in place today, so if cities and the county wanted to go separate from the school board and any other changes that might be there, essentially our Board of County Commissioners would have to consider approval of the ordinance and ballot language in roughly April of 2024. The reason being is that we need to provide the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability, OPAGA, the language, the ordinance and resolution calling for that referendum at least 180 days prior to the election, which is May of 2024. And so again, it's not needed if the current IST continues as it is. So that process, once it gets to OPAGA, is that they will have 60 days to contract with a CPA firm. That CPA firm then has up to 60 days prior to the general election to publish a performance audit where they will review the program that we put forward and potentially any other past programs that might be a part of that. And then we have to provide the supervisor of elections with ballot language in August of 2024 to eventually meet a date of November 5th, 2024, if there is going to be an item, a question on the general election ballot. So, Madam Mayor, Madam President, that is just some overview of what we have in place.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Todd.
Mr. Bonlaren and Ms. Brown. I'm going to always defer to President Botel here. I think that at this point, if you look at the rest of the documentation that you have, it is in small print, and it's the ordinance. So we can look at that and review it at a later time. Right now, let's open up the board for anybody who may have any questions or comments. Looking at the page that we just finished on, that we took, if you look at timeline and next steps for board direction. And President Botel, would you like to add anything to that at this time?
I just want to say thank you to all of the members of the league who are here today to support this endeavor and have this conversation. As you can see from the document that Todd referenced, many of our municipalities have already voted in favor of supporting this infrastructure sales tax. And we really wanted to hear today from the county commissioners, is there an interest in working with us to make that happen? So I'd love to hear from the commissioners on that.
Very good, very good. Okay, so I'm going to open up the board, so to speak, for any county commissioner who would like to speak. And I'll start with Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. Can I be heard? God has spoken. I would just like to start, I'm on the TPA board with several of you, and I'm also on the Tri-Rail board, and I've had a number of conversations with our neighbors to the south about the transportation surtax. Infrastructure surtax, I know that it's needed, and there's a lot of projects that we have, but I'm wondering how much conversation you've been able to have about the difference in the two, because transportation surtax gives us the ability to leverage funds that are out there right now that we can't even apply for. So the return on investment on a tax like this for our taxpayers is significant. our neighbors to the south get a seat at the table when it comes to applying for grants from the federal, from the state government that we can't even apply for. This also can be used for operations and maintenance, which the infrastructure sales tax cannot. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, I don't know, my times runs together. We had a meeting with Broward and Miami-Dade discussing how they did this exact same thing and how they're able to use it. One of the big takeaways that I got was how much they worked with all of their cities to make sure that every city was able to participate in this, that it was used across the board in the counties. And it's a big issue for us. I know we talk about it. In fact, our last workshop, traffic was like the number one concern about what we were talking. It's an issue in the county. It's moving north. Miami-Dade and Broward has a lot of traffic issues. We know. I live in Boca. I drive up here. It's a quality of life issue. I got to tell you, it's rough. And if we are going to try to tackle this, we're in a sweet spot right now in the county. I think we have a lot of development that's coming. This particular transportation surtax, I believe, I would urge you all to consider it, that this is the way that we should move forward. And it frees up money that we're using right now on our roads to do infrastructure. There's big discussions to be had, but I think if we can move forward, cities and counties together, and put together like a real master plan for what transportation looks like in Palm Beach County, how we move people around, it opens up options for mobility within our towns. And we, as the county, have the chance to make sure we move people from city to city. And once we get them to your city, you have a chance to actually look at what transportation looks like within your town. We're talking micro-mobility, bike lanes, a number of different opportunities that this gives us flexibility to pursue. So I'd just like to open the floor with that and hear what anyone else has to say.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Do you mind if I go last?
Oh, not at all. Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. All right, so in 2016, the voters passed for us to do this discretionary surtax. And it was supposed to be for 10 years or, whenever we reach that $2.7 billion, which, as Sherry mentioned, it's supposed to sunset around December 31st of 2025. We've collected about $2 billion from our residents. And so the discussion of whether or not we should continue this surtax, I don't support it. And I believe that we need to give our residents a break. And, there's no real plan in regards to how we're going to use these dollars. So I believe that the best thing for us to do is do not move forward with this surtax. The school district, they have the right to do this school district levy. They've provided a letter to us, to the board, that would, for them to raise the half a penny surtax. And, I support the school district because they're limited in regards to how they can raise revenue. And we need to, and especially, of course, in his letter, Mr. Burke had mentioned that, they've had to share some of their discretionary surtax with the charter schools. And so I support the school district, and, there should be a discussion in regards to doing a transportation surtax. And I believe that it shouldn't be this year in 2024. I think that it's best for us to really take a step back, look at how do we address transportation for our residents in Palm Beach County, work with the League of Cities, the TPA, and for us to create a plan that will address transportation needs for our residents. And however, if we decide to get the other additional penny, it will limit us in regards to how do we fund the transportation surtax in the future. So I believe that we shouldn't proceed with this discretionary surtax. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Vice Mayor Marino.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me? Okay. I, too, am not in favor of this surtax. And when I look down the list of municipalities that have passed a resolution in support, they are the smaller cities. I don't even know if they'd be able to get the 50% to go over the 50% benchmark to carry this, but I believe a break to our constituents is what we need to do. That's why the county did the largest tax rate cut in 30 years, millage rate. And so I don't believe that we should be passing on another fee to our residents. Let's give them a break, let it sunset. Because if we do, in fact, put this in place again for another 10 years, then we can't even talk about how we're going to handle transportation for another 10 years. And I think transportation is one of those key items that we talk about and need to actually do something about. So I'm not in favor of this. When I look at the list that, of people that have passed resolutions, there are indications of interest, but that's different than passing a resolution. Most of these who passed are smaller cities. I'm not in favor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. And Commissioner Weiss, you're recognized.
Thank you. Yeah, I looked at this list and I see a number of the municipalities that I represent. They're listed as support, but they have not passed resolutions. And so that's concerning to me because I don't know what that means. If their boards have not taken a stance on this, I think it's premature to say that they're support. I'm sure their administration support it, but as I would assume most administrations would support having additional funding. We did tell the taxpayers that this was going to sunset in 10 years at the most. I would ask a question of our staff. What's projection for 2025? What do you expect we're going to end at?
Yeah, it'll go all the way through December 31st, 2025. The tax always begins on January 1 and ends on December 31st. You can't stop it in the middle, but once we reach 2.7 billion, I will let Department of Revenue know that we've reached it, and it will sunset December 31st.
And what do you think the actual collection will be by December 31st?
2025, I don't know that I brought it with me, but it will be more than 2.7 billion. So,
Correct. And I share the concerns of my colleagues in regards to transportation. I think transportation looking forward is going to be our biggest challenge. I shouldn't say our biggest because we have a number of them, but one of our largest challenges, continuing to be able to move people so that we can absorb the growth that we're going to have to absorb to continue the good economic development that we'd like to continue to have. I think it's going to be important. I think that we made a promise to the voters. I didn't, but I believe previous boards did that, and I think we need to be clear with that promise. The other thing I didn't see in this documentation, and I appreciate all the cities contributing, but how many of them completed all the projects that they had initially put forth? How many of those had actually been completed? And how many are these on new projects as well? That would be another question I have on this. But I think at this time, it's not. I would much rather us be focused on looking at a transportation surtax, getting a plan together that we can go to the voters for. I think, and I think partly one of the things we need to be looking at is, if you're not having to fund your roads out of your ad valorem dollars or any of the transportation related, and I know a number of the municipalities now are getting shuttles and other things going on that that you can fund out of a transportation surtax, which would then free up money for other capital projects. So should they wish to pursue them. So that's my comments.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Weiss, Commissioner Barnett, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I have a question for staff. The school board is going after their own half-cent. What happens if it turns out the Board of County Commissioners, and it sounds like it, doesn't have the stomach to pursue this renewal? Where does that leave the cities in pursuit of their 20%?
Leave them nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, in Palm Beach County, it's up to the Board of County Commissioners to bring forward an infrastructure sales surtax to the ballot. And it could take the form that we have it currently, or the form of just shared between the cities and the county in that regard. So I think the options are limited in terms of, whether a municipality or municipalities can go out on their own on that. There is provisions in statute that says when you have a majority of municipalities that representing a majority of the population of a county that vote in favor of moving that forward, that it can go on the ballot. I don't know that all of our cities collectively meet that threshold or not. We can flush that out a little bit more with legal, but that's one way that statute does prescribe when a majority of cities passing resolutions, like resolutions that represent a majority of the population within the county.
I'd like to recognize President Botel to respond to that issue, Commissioner Barnett, and we'll get back with you.
Thank you. I wanted to say that we had a briefing this morning before we came up here from our attorney on that topic, and perhaps he can enlighten everyone. And I think it's basically what Todd just said, but Keith?
No, Todd's exactly right.
Yeah.
The other path would be that municipalities representing a majority of the county population would have to adopt a uniform resolution. And if that happened, then it would go on the ballot. But the big question is, what does the municipal population can make up in terms of the entire county population? If it's even over 50%, then realistically you'd have to have almost every municipality adopt that uniform resolution to move it forward in that way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Day. I think we ought to continue with Commissioner Barnett. Do you have any other
Well, it seems
questions?
that the cities wouldn't be totally out of the game, considering that most of this sheet here is green in support, or yellow is yet to consider, is on their agenda, scheduled to be discussed. But when I was first appointed, I said I would never support a tax increase, and I've talked to people inside this room and outside this room who consider what we're doing today to be the creation of a new tax instead of the renewal of the IST. We haven't finished collecting that $2.7 billion. I think I've heard it said a couple of times. The projected date to completely collect that $2.7 million is December 31st, 2025.
Correct.
Would it be premature to go ahead and ask the voters to tax themselves again, considering we haven't finished collecting that $2.7 billion? I mean, is there legitimacy to the argument that this is another tax as opposed to the renewal of the current tax?
One of the, that issue has come up a number of times, and so you can kind of, you can frame it however you like, but I think by and large, where you have seen an infrastructure surtax in place in counties throughout the state, when they have gone to the voters to ask for renewal of that, it has really been posed not as a tax increase, it's just a continuation of the existing tax that they continue to levy. But again, it's sort of all in the eye of the beholder and how you want to frame that argument, but it's not necessarily asking them to tax themselves more than they currently are being taxed today. It's just asking them whether they're okay with not, I guess, getting a reduction going forward and just maintaining it at the current level.
Well, this is a tough decision for me because of my stated position, but also I have cities, 3 of them in my district, that have passed resolutions of support, and I know other commissioners have cities that have done the same. And we're always talking about District 3, how we're being overlooked when it comes to resources and financing for very important infrastructure projects. I'd like to hear what my other fellow board members have to say. Thank you. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Barnett. Now, I think Commissioner Baxter, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. I, too, have been weighing this back and forth quite a bit. As most people know, I think my district has a lot of infrastructure needs. But at the same time, our residents are hurting. You know, they're struggling already to pay for just basics. And so I keep going back and forth. I've heard from my cities, my mayors who would really like this to go through. And then I come back to, and I have some questions. How many projects were, I guess, originally through the county supposed to be on this surtax? How many were designated, Ms. Baker?
Right. So just for Palm Beach County, not for any of the cities, our plan has 413 projects. We have completed 128 to date, and many more. I didn't take account of how many are started or in works, but as we met in January, our plan is funded, and we have plans to complete every project on the list.
Commissioner Baxter, I'm sorry. The projects that we gave to the public, identified as projects we would be expending these dollars on, we have not changed any of those projects. And I brought to the board recently during our budget process a means in which to get those projects done. So we are doing exactly what we told the public we would do with those funds.
Thank you. And then to comment on some of the surtax versus the infrastructure tax versus the transportation tax, can both of those be spent on roads or just one?
Yes, they can both be spent on roads, but just one can be spent, the infrastructure one can be spent on the planning, the capital side of roads, and infrastructure can as well, but there's more flexibility on the transportation side in terms of the operational component of it.
Because historically, until Commissioner Woodward had pointed out the availability of making more dollars available with that, I've never been in favor of an independent funding source for transportation. It always seems to come back up in conversation. Is that what this would be?
You're talking about
In terms of a dedicated funding source for transportation?
So transportation surtaxes, when they're in place, are considered dedicated funding sources for transportation purposes. And I know that Commissioner Woodward had mentioned in her comments about our neighbors to the south that have dedicated funding sources of transportation surtaxes, and those are recognized by the state and the federal governments as being dedicated sources for grant purposes, et cetera, and moving forward, which is why they have access, I think, to other resources through that.
I've had such a hard time with trying to treat us like we are New York City or Chicago or someplace that has 10,000 people per block or so. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but to the point of, the transportation and dedicated funding sources has never sat well with me because we are so spread out. I have a hard time believing that a mother is going to take her stroller and kids to a bus station, to a trail station, to load on it. If they have to drop their kids off at school or get anywhere, I just don't see our residents using mass transportation because we don't have the density. We're very large. We have population, but we're a very spread out county. So I have a hard time with that overall. I mean, the fact that it can be used towards roads and, things that actually people transverse on, I guess I wouldn't eliminate it as a possibility, but not something I would want to support today. To the idea of what we're here to talk about, the surtax. So, I mean, with 413 projects, only 128 complete, we are 8 years in. I can't see going to the voters really and being able to justify asking them to pay for another penny because we haven't even completed the 413 total projects yet. So I do agree with taking a break. I do agree with when we say, or previous boards have said, we'll let this sunset and this isn't a forever tax going on and on and on. I agree with not doing that to the taxpayers. Because, again, we are still there as far as not completing projects. I would say in the future, if these projects get complete and we want to ask the taxpayers in good faith to do that, I wouldn't, dismiss it forever, but I think at this time, with the lack of completed projects, I just can't, in good faith, go forward and ask them to step up and pay another half cent. I'm sure the school board can move forward with their half cent if they like, but I with all the roads that I need in my district and projects, and we have all these capital improvement projects that seem to be coming up, I feel like I incline to want to, but again, I just had, there's no way I can do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Baxter. Commissioner Weiss, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just in continuing the conversation on, I guess some questions to my friends, our municipal partners. You know, we're political creatures, clearly, and this is a political decision. And my question is, as far as I know, who is going to run this campaign? I've heard no discussion of who is able, willing to fund and run a campaign to support a continuation of this tax. As far as I've been told by the people in the business community that I speak to, there's no appetite by them to do this, and maybe you all have some different information you're willing to share with us.
Did you want to respond to that? Either Ms. Brown, Mr. Bonlaren?
No, it's not them.
No? Okay.
I asked for my municipal friends.
Oh, your municipal friends. Okay, very good. Very, very good. Yes, I see that. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I was born that night, but not last night.
I've heard that.
I'm saying that for one reason. Now, I heard maybe 3 or 4 of the county commissioners who I dearly respect, you guys. But you guys continue to make the statement, give the people a break. But in the meantime, what happened to these cities that are falling apart, that need the capital improvement? What's happening? Palm Beach County is the fastest growing county in the state. I always say, if not the country. And we need the help. And we're sitting here as if there's a magic wand going to come out where it's going to happen overnight with these municipalities. 27 cities said they need the help. Is that not convincing enough? 27 cities said they need the help. Look at the project. Now, I'll say this. If you guys took a look at the project that all these municipalities are saying, do the counties have the money to help? And if you notice in the last couple of years, you didn't have many people or the cities coming to you guys with questions for help because this will help them out. What's going to happen when this is defeated? Everybody going to be marching to the county administrator and you guys to say, we need help. I think we're ignoring that. And I know a lot of it's politics. I know what time it is. But I'm saying to you guys, you represent the people of Palm Beach County first. And these folks in these municipalities need the help. And when you walk away from this, you got the school district. For the last 30 years, they're putting it on the table. They have those issues. They need the help. But yet we say we're going to give everybody a break. Okay. So in the next 5, 10 years, county commissioners, where you guys going to find the money to help these cities that need the help when they come to you? You already have a shortfall yourself. Where you going to find the monies? I'm being respectful, but also I'm letting you guys know that we're passionate about this because you represent the people of Palm Beach County, and it's not going to happen if you guys walk away. I see it's defeated already, but what are you going to do in the next couple of years?
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
The residents of Palm Beach County are taxpayers. And property taxes have increased. They're facing insurance increases. And we went to them and said, hey, this was going to be for 10 years. We're going to raise $2.7 billion, and this would end.
But the school district, too, and they're doing it again, right?
But you know what? The school district, that's a different story.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is that for us, as a Board of County Commissioners, as you heard from our board members, the residents needs a break. and that's it.
It's
Now,
not just the resident commissioners.
But I'm saying these are
the
our
visitors
residents
coming here too, paying
I know,
for it
but
too.
I am what I'm telling you is that from our perspective, we want to give the residents a tax break, and you know, you can't continue with taxes and taxes and taxes. At some point, if you say it's going to be for 10 years, it's got to be for 10 years. Now, what we're also saying is that we know that transportation needs to be addressed. And we may not all agree in terms of how we're going to fund it or if the whole board will support it. But I think that you heard from our board members that we want to look at transportation and transportation working with the League of Cities. Then we would be able to address some of these city issues that are taking place in District 3 and other places because we have road needs that needs to be addressed. So I think that what we're looking at is to address something that is comprehensive for the future. But this iteration of this discretionary sales tax for us as a Board of County Commissioners, we want it to end.
So be it.
Thank you. All right, thank you, sir. Mayor Reed? And then I know Commissioner Barnett, you've had your hand up. If you don't mind if I call on Mayor Reed, and I'll go back to you, sir.
I just have a couple of questions. I guess my mic is not hot. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
All right, lovely. Sherry, I have a quick question for you. If the collection for the surtax, if we don't collect all of it by 2025, for short a penny, what happens the following year? How much more money would come in for 26?
So in 2023, we collected $400 million countywide, the 1 penny. So you would think that we're probably going to collect around $400 million a calendar year.
400 million. So we're looking at over 3.2 billion at that point in
So,
time.
I know Commissioner Weiss asked it, and I wasn't thinking at the time, but if we get $400 million a year by 2025, we should have collected around probably $3 billion as a county.
Okay, so there is a chance, if we're short a penny, that the money will come in and there'll be billions coming in afterwards? Or you're
Millions.
millions, excuse me, I meant to say millions, I apologize. Millions coming in afterwards that will bring us to more. So it may, we don't know, it depends on the collections. So, and we saw your projections that they do go up and down
And so the ordinance says that we have to collect $2.7 billion before September 1 of any given year. And we picked September 1 because I have to tell on October 1st to Department of Revenue whether or not we're making a change to our surtax. So that's where the September 1 came from. And so in 2025, I believe we will have 2.7 billion, and before October 1, I have to tell DOR, we collected the 2.7, we're ending December 31st, 2025. But the surtax is always for a calendar year, so you
Right.
can't stop it in the middle, so
Sure.
that's why they need it by October 1, and really, when I called DOR, they're like, as soon as you know, if you'll tell us, don't wait till October, even though that's what statute says, please
Okay.
let us know, just so they can gear up.
I appreciate that. And then also regarding this form, this to clarify, because I think we heard from the county assistant administrator that these were all green. The green ones were resolutions. They're not resolutions. They're just voiced
Either
support
support
from
or-
city managers, not from city councils.
I'll let Richard clarify that, that's his document.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's my question. So the green, when we're looking at this, is this a resolution passed by council, or is this the city manager that got on the phone and said, yeah, we'd be into it? Because you represented that West Palm Beach had passed a resolution and they have not.
The ones that said passed resolution are passed resolution of support.
Good.
So the ones that actually say passed resolution of support
And
are.
support is like a phone call or?
Support is, well, Palm Beach, take Palm Beach Shores. They passed a resolution last night. We didn't get it. We're
Okay.
not going to get it till it's signed. Who knows when we get it? We may
Great.
not get it.
Okay, great. Just the
But
clarity.
They are in the process. None of these is a blatant, bold-faced lie.
Sure,
I mean,
no.
they've all got some form of support, and some of them, because of political reasons, everybody supports, the whole town supports it.
Mhm.
But for political reasons, they can't go out there and open themselves up during an election or any time to say, look, I'm supporting as somebody said, it can be sent as a new tax.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. I just wanted the clarification. And then what I'm hearing is we're not receiving the support from the county commission to take this sunsetting tax and continue it. So if that's the case, I would task our Palm Beach County League of Cities with making sure we take the time to reach out to the municipalities that are deeply affected by this to assure that we give you the support and information you need to go after grants for septic to sewer if it was on your list. If you have a roadway that needs help, to help you get transportation alternatives or LI grants from the TPA. So I think that if this is not going to go through today, it's up to us as League of Cities to support our municipalities. If they are unable to finish what they need to take care of their residents, we need to help you do that. And then lastly, instead of this tax being rushed to the ballot, we obviously didn't come to you with a clear enough plan. I do think in listening to you guys talk about consideration of a transportation surtax in the future, that we may want to consider looking into bringing in an outside consultant that could possibly look at a plan. So as we go forward, we don't wind up back in this crux again where we don't have the information, because I haven't heard anything about the Oversight Committee's report on the surtax yet. I haven't heard anything about a campaign about it yet. I haven't heard about the independent information that should have also come provided today. So let's avoid that when we go forward in the future. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Mayor Reed. Commissioner Barnett?
Thanks again, Mayor. I have a couple of questions, but considering the feelings of most of the board, it might be moot, but I'm asking it anyway. With regards to Commissioner Weiss's question regarding promoting this tax, if we were to approve it, which it looks like it's probably not going to be approved, and if the business community that has supported other referenda in the past with elaborate and expensive campaigns, if they don't have the stomach for it, then what's the likely of success? And going to the fact that the school board is pursuing their own half cent, if this were to be approved by us, we would be asking the supervisor to place 2 tax referenda on the ballot. Has that ever happened before? Have we ever asked the taxpayers to tax themselves twice in one election? And what would be the likelihood of success of our tax competing against the tax meant to benefit school children? I think when it comes to trains and buses versus children, children are going to win. I mean, if I had to choose, I wouldn't want to tax myself twice. And I sincerely sympathize with my friends in the cities. I have very serious infrastructure needs among especially Green Acres and Palm Springs that need to be addressed somehow. But taxing the people who are already overburdened, I can't stomach that.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett. And Vice Mayor Castro.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Marino observed that it is a small city versus large city concern. When this was first passed, we were in a recession. I think we still have significant inflationary influences. We've all seen increase in construction costs. So from a small city perspective, we're still in the same position. When I first was elected, the town of Lake Park was barely solvent. We couldn't afford to buy a mower for our public works guys to maintain the parks, let alone repair sidewalks. This has been an important funding source for the town of Lake Park. Switching hats on you, as Assistant Village Manager for the Village of Palm Springs, this has been a resource for us to fund park improvements. We've also used it in the planned construction of our police department expansion, which will include an EOC. Those costs have gone from $9 million to $12 million, now to $17.8 million. This is how we were going to fund it. Both my cities, we would support a transportation surtax, but that surtax is limited in how it can be spent. We can't spend it on a police department or on our parks. In Lake Park, we have a mobility fee, and we have a multimodal master plan that prioritizes how we're going to spend this mobility fee. The county needs a transportation plan that's cohesive. my concern is that the TPA doesn't represent all the cities. It doesn't represent the small cities.
That's right.
I agree with Mayor Wilson that the smaller cities, my central cities, we're going to be coming to the county
Yeah.
to ask us for infrastructure improvements because we're not going to be able to afford them in the future. So the small cities, especially those of us who are near our millage cap, we are going to need assistance somehow in the future with revenue sources.
Thank you very much, Mayor Castro. Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. So just to bring it back around with the transportation, just I wanted to clarify that very first line is for the planning, development, construction, operation, and maintenance of roads and bridges. So it's not just public transportation, mass transportation. I want everyone to understand that because in private conversations that I've had with other stakeholders, you know, it was made abundantly clear if we move forward with the plan. And by the way, I wasn't clear at the beginning. I do think this is something for 26, not for this cycle. But if we move forward with the plan, we have to have proof to all the voters of the county that the small cities get their share, that there's, you know, whatever it is, however the plan shapes out. I mean, I looked at City of Belglade, you brought yours up. Your number one item on here is bridge replacements at 3.3 million. This right here qualifies for it. So we know for ourselves that roads, bridge replacements, all of that is very expensive. And this even, you know, gives us the operation or the potential for maintenance that we don't have with other plans because we have to build it, but then we have to pay to maintain it. Or if you get it built on a grant, you have to prove that you can maintain it, which was part of the leveraging that I was talking about, because that's where this becomes leverage. If you get federal or state money for something, you can use this as leverage that you will have the ability to maintain whatever they give you for capital. So it's something that I think that we need to have a lot of discussion on. I think that we need to let this one go for this cycle. I agree with many of my fellow commissioners that it's time to let this one cycle out, but come with a real plan. And it's not going to be mass transportation countywide. That's not a master plan for Palm Beach County. But it is something that every single city has to be a part of. Every single city has to know what's coming and the benefits that's coming for you. And we know that these projects are among the most expensive ones that we have to fund. So I don't want the small cities to feel that you're left out. I have 13 municipalities. I have 3 large ones and a bunch of little ones. They're right up the coastline. But it's expensive to fund these types of capital projects and to maintain the roads. We get complaints all the time from people, my road is not up to what it should be. So maintenance of roads is extremely expensive, and this would give us the ability to do that. So I just want everyone to know, I sit here as a county commissioner and pledge to you that I want to work with all the cities and all of our unincorporated area as well, because our people who are out there, they need representation too, as well as maintenance of their roads and traffic. Lyons Road, don't get her started. You know, it's a problem. But I think that this is something, it gives us time to come together and really focus on very expensive projects that we need and our residents want. I say all the time, they don't care if it's a city, county, or state road. They want it to function, they want it to work, and that's our responsibility together to come together and make sure that happens. And we can do that. We have a couple years to put this together. We can present the public with a really good plan that all of us will be proud of. And that's what I want to work with for all of you.
Thank you so much for those encouraging words, Commissioner. Gee, I have 2 and 2 here. So, and Julie, what do you think? I haven't forgotten about it. But why don't we start with Commissioner Weiss, and then we're going to go to City Mayor
Wilson.
City Manager Wilson.
Mayor.
Okay, go right ahead.
So,
Mayor, see.
I go back, I don't think anybody answered my question on who is going to be the front for the IST. So I haven't heard an answer to that. Maybe you don't have an answer today. Maybe it's something you can find, but at this point, I haven't heard an answer to that question. I think, one of the things I think we all talked about when the IST was first passed, a lot of our sales tax gets paid for by visitors, right? So I think roughly about a third of our tax revenues comes from our visitors that visit us. and which is great. That takes some of the burden off of our local taxpayers to help fund some of the projects. But if we were to do an IST, a transportation surtax in moving forward, as was mentioned, we're going to get the 30% from our visitors, but then we can leverage it and potentially double it with other dollars from the federal and state, which is really, then we're really doing something for our community and helping to support the needs of the community, which hopefully then frees up other monies for both the county and for our municipal partners to be able to do some of the other projects that you all need to do. We've talked, I think, ad nauseum about the fact that, of what we said to the taxpayers about what the IST was going to be, and understand, and trust me, I understand, we understand, we had to rework our budget to figure out how to finish off our projects because of the increased costs. We saw our costs have gone up like everybody else's. We're not immune to it. So, but we had to get creative. Our staff was able to get creative and figure out how we could balance that out, and over the next few years finish out the projects that we had promised that we were going to be able to complete with the IST. It is. And I think we're all empathetic. We're all dealing with these same challenges together. I just think that. At the end of the day, we need to be looking forward. A lot of what I see on the IST is stuff from the past, and maybe we didn't get it done. But that's backwards. We need to be looking as far forward to put ourselves in the right footing for what's happening in the next couple of years, but what's going to happen in the next 30 or 40 or 50 years of how this county, how your cities, how we're all going to be able to have the best possible life, have the best economic environment. And I really think we need to be focused on another type of support, which is going to be our transportation system, and having that dedicated funding source for it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Mayor Wilson, you're recognized.
Well, thank you. I don't want anybody to get it twisted. I respect the will of this body, the county commissioners. If you guys decide you don't want to support it, by all means, nothing's going to change my respect and relationship I have for you guys. I want to be clear about that. But two things I want to make also. Kim said something that was very interesting. If you guys do a study or do an analysis, and this is not about the TPA, but I want to make sure that y'all understand. I'm like the grandpa in the room. I've been a part of that for 20 years. The smaller cities do get left behind. We've been talking about lights in the Glades for 15 years. And when I hear you guys making these comments, well, we'll just go to the T-Bay and get the monies. Well, it just don't work that easy. We got a new chairperson, so maybe she can change things around. I'm hoping, I have confidence that you would do that. The last thing I would say, just keep in mind, Madam Administrator, and to all these board members, that now you're going to have the flood zone again of your cities coming to you with their needs of capital improvement. So it seems to me we're kicking the can now, and knowing the next year or two, you're going to still have the same problem with these cities that need capital improvement. And how is that going to change? Right now, it's not. You can apply for grants. We apply for grants all the time. But this was a way out. But I respect the will of this body. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And I'll end, just 1 second, Commissioner Baxter. Would you like to go, sir?
Sure, no problem.
All right.
The
Manager Campbell for the record.
First, let me ask. No, I must state, as a city manager, amongst the policymakers in this room, I'm a little scared, but I'm gonna caution my words and say what I still have to say. Have we done any calculations as to what the average person over the past 9 years, 8 years have done or paid into the surtax. Just my simple calculation, if we do the 2.7 billion over the per person, is averaging $250 to $300 per person. That's just, again, I'm not a mathematician, not a finance person, just a little city manager. So you got that $250 per person, $300 per person, and for some, that's a huge break. But that's over a 10-year period where that person is paid in. Now, we've turned around and supported a $200 million bond for homes. Residents are going to have a hard time getting to those homes without the proper infrastructure. One difference in the transportation surtax and the infrastructure surtax is May. That is a major difference. The transportation surtax, the county may support or share. And I know that won't happen here in Palm Beach County. That will be a shall in Palm Beach County. But in accordance to the statute, it reads may. The local infrastructure surtax is we agree upon the share before it's adopted. So don't want to get into the splitting of hairs because our fearless county administrator would do just what her board directs her to do. At the same time, I have an understanding of the may and shall. That is one of the major differences we cannot overlook as we move any of the surtaxes forward. But we've all sat around the table today and we want to give the taxpayer a break. We want to give them a break. But in the same breath, we've turned around and said, oh, we're going to talk about a transportation surtax. If we're going to give a break, let's give a break. Let's just give the break. Period. Let's take a 10-year hiatus of surtaxes. Nothing that I would support. I didn't agree with the $200 million bond, and I would say that here, understanding the community that I serve. But I didn't want my property taxes to increase. However, I understood the need. So, again, if we're going to give the residents a break, let's just give them a break. And that the little word, may and shall, those things are important as we move any surtax forward. But mostly the transportation surtax, that's a may share with the municipalities and not a shall share with the municipalities. So, but I'm going to hold everything else that I've written down here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, Manager. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. My question's for the attorney. Do we have any flexibility? I was looking at the ballot language in the presentation, and the voters voted that this would end December 31st, 2026. Now, I know we had to send our ordinance and paperwork to the state. Do we have any flexibility of allowing this to just go to that date for our small cities at all?
So there is also the $2.7 billion.
I understand.
So there's no flexibility going
It's just
beyond
we are where we are.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor Marino.
My goodness.
Just an observation, the development community has been the largest payer of this, and since we've had so much development going on. So by letting this sunset, the development community actually gets a little bit of a break, which means that the end users, the small businesses, the residents, should hopefully, the developers that are in the room, realize the savings too, because any tax that a developer pays gets put back to the end user, which is us. So Again, I'm not in favor. I think that's the sentiment for the day, and with that,
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Would you like, I'm going to now recognize our President Botel. Go right ahead,
Thank you.
President.
I just wanted to give an opportunity for any league members who haven't spoken yet, if they'd wish to make comment, and if not.
I'll just add.
Go right ahead. Could you state your name for the record?
Molly Young, Mayor of DeQuesta.
Yeah.
I'll just add, honestly, everything I wanted to say has been said, and the conversation seems to be leaning towards a transportation tax. I would just, and this would be something we need to bring back to our board to discuss how we would like to take the next steps. But pending what the board wants to do, I would like to encourage education sooner than later and starting the conversation sooner than later, because there is a sentiment out there right now that the small cities are going to be left out, that they're not going to get money. I mean, I'm in DeQuesta, all in North County. It's like, well, we did Complete Street. It's underutilized. We looked to put a palm tree on stuff, and it was way too expensive. And who's going to use it? We looked to add a rideshare service. Again, we really couldn't justify setting aside the funds for that. And I think the county may distribute. That's what's making everyone nervous. So I would just really encourage education sooner than later and start the conversation sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank you again, commissioners and league members who are here today. I really appreciate the time that it's. Do we have somebody else? I'm sorry.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your.
It's okay. Listen, we're all taxpayers, we know that, and we know the break that we would get is not as large, as was pointed out, as what you might think over that 10-year time period. So I think instead of focusing on giving the taxpayers a break, maybe we should focus on the good that they're getting from it.
Absolutely.
Think of all the positive projects that are being done. In my town, the little town of Pipoluxo, we have a project of going from septic to sewer. And we're using some of the monies from infrastructure to be able to fund that project. And that helps everybody in this county. It protects our water resources. It protects, it's just a benefit to everybody. So instead of focusing on the small amount of taxes every taxpayer may realize, we ought to focus on all the benefits that they are going to get from the projects that are being proposed by each of these individual cities.
Thank you, Mayor. And so as I was saying, thank you for hearing us. We got your message loud and clear. There are a couple of other items on this agenda, transportation and workforce housing. I'm hopeful that we can meet again on those topics. Perhaps Ms. Baker can work with Mr. Ratcliffe and come up with another date when we can get together. We do love to speak with you. Sometimes
always love to hear
it's not news that's accepted pleasantly by all of us, but we're appreciative of the time that you spent with us today. So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much, President Botel, and thank you all the members of the League of Cities who are here today. I want to thank my colleagues, and don't put your stuff away back yet. Just hold on for a second. And I just want to say that, that as the mayor of this county, I am proud of the discussion that we had today. It was an open discussion. It was at times emotional, but the questions were good. They were based on good observations of what all our taxpayers are facing. And I think that we always need to remember this is a regressive tax that applies to everybody in the county who pays for any item other than those that have been exempt, which is duly noted. But I think that we always have to remember that no matter what, the county is made up of cities.
Yeah.
And the cities are made up of people.
That's right.
And that is our main concern. So no matter what you heard today, President Botel, it was an open discussion. It was a frank, candid discussion. And I think that I look forward to some further discussions like we had today. But no matter what, every county commissioner represents people. Every person here, except for my particular county, we have cities. And if we don't take care of our cities, we're not taking care of the county.
Amen.
Right? So I just want you to know we will continue this discussion. And I was very, very impressed by by everybody speaking up today. I hope everybody had the opportunity to speak. I think they did. And with that, we are adjourned, but I want to remind my colleagues who need to stay here. We still have unfinished business from earlier today. So thank you so much. Thank you.